Hey everybody, I'm Eddie Starr, and this is the College of Rock and Roll Knowledge. Class is now in session. This is where the music and culture that shaped a generation live on, and my own path through the world of rock and roll.
Hey, Eddie.
Hey Henry, how are you?
All right, just going through those security protocols. That's why it took me a while.
Oh, okay. So what's happening?
Not much, just giving it more thought um, about the different types of genres of music that
Oh,
I've
from our
listened throughout the years,
conversation the other day.
you know? So
Yeah.
just giving it some more thought.
So I'm really curious to know about that. What you were listening to. You were talking about Lou Rawls, James Brown.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about listening to a lot of Spanish music as a kid,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and of course Michael Jackson.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because I was trying to think back of all the different types of music that I was listening to as a kid, and as I was getting older throughout the years and the different type of genre I was exposed to. I've also listened to Earth, Wind, and Fire as well.
Oh wow!
The Spinners, the OJs, the Four Tops. I remember listening to them also as a kid growing up, you know, and well into the 80s, you know. So definitely their music inspired me, to listen to a lot of that soulful music, you know.
It's sort of funny. You're like an old school kid,
Yeah. Uh huh.
and you know what's funny about that is that a lot of the music that I initially heard and sort of made my journey, sort of formed my likes and dislikes, was really a lot of the stuff that my parents were playing. Like, I think I mentioned before, my dad was very much into his parents' generation of music. So,
Mm
like Perry Como and Frank Sinatra, whereas my mom was very contemporary. So she liked the Rolling Stones. She was the one who turned me on to the Phil Spector, um, the Darlene Love, He's a Rebel, and all that stuff.
hmm. Mm
He
hmm. Mm hmm.
also turned me on. Did you ever listen to Sam Cooke?
I've I've heard of Sam Cooke. I never really got the opportunity to listen to his stuff.
Now, if you get a chance, or maybe I'll send you some music. Or great, it's
Hmm.
on Spotify. Why do we even have to do that, right?
Right, right. Yeah.
No, but see, I'm still old school in the past,
Right, right, right.
but I still love to share music. And you really should look up Sam Cooke. He
Okay.
really great music. A lot of it R&B, but a lot of it was, he did songs like "Twisting the Night Away," and
Okay.
so I would check him out.
Okay.
There's a lot of
God.
stuff that formed my, you know, my early
Mm-hmm.
childhood as well. I wanted to ask you too, what was it that got slipping my mind here?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that by being involved in, and sort of like taking in all this music from like a previous generation, and how it sort of forms your path in music, but have you back then, was it just me or wasn't it like if you read a music magazine, for instance, right? Artists
Mm-hmm.
always talked about who they were into.
Right. Who were their influence
Yeah. Did you
in music?
like that where you were just like, oh, I'm reading, whatever magazine or Rolling Stone or something like that. I don't know what you were into with that. So maybe I should let you talk.
Okay, as far as, reading stuff in magazine, I mean, the only one that I can remember as far as like in my high school years, um, I think it was Prince, because I've heard of Prince in my younger years and I've heard of his songs like Little Red Corvette and the other ones, I Want to Be Your Lover and so forth. But then I really, really got into him when he came up with the Purple Rain album. And
Uh,
then I started buying magazines and reading more about this artist and how he is a musical genius and he can play every instrument and
yeah,
how he's a perfectionist. And I guess when it came to him, I really started, buying a lot of these magazines to read more about him as an artist
yeah,
because people never really understood him.
yeah. Did you ever see? I know you saw probably Purple Rain, but
Yeah, I did.
did you
Yeah.
ever see that movie Under the Cherry Moon?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I
I
saw
love
that
that
too.
movie.
Yes,
It
I
was
do
all
too.
black and white,
It's
and
black and white.
the critics really were very, very harsh with that movie.
Yeah, they
I
were. Yeah.
really, really liked that movie. You know, with
Mm.
him and what was his name? You know, one of the guys from his bands or something like that.
Um.
Remember, he had his like best friend, and he would
Mm-hmm.
go around, and he was always playing the piano for that lady, Mrs. Wellington, I think her name was.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure if it was Jerome from Morris Day.
yeah, it might have been Morris Day. It
Mm-hmm.
might have been with working with him, but
Right.
I
Mm-hmm.
did like that movie. It's funny because my sister was really into Prince. I really did not care for Prince that much, which is
Right.
really funny. I mean, I can now, I really do appreciate him, and I know a lot of people would probably, you know, how it is about certain musicians and music is such a personal thing. But back then,
Right.
it was just, you know, it was just straight up rock and roll. I mean, I had like Joan Jett, Billy
Right.
Idol. Um,
Right. Right. I used to
but
listen to
then I
Billy
was
Idol.
listening to a lot of the, you know, the new. Did you ever listen to any of the new wave stuff? Were you into any of that?
Like, give me a few examples as far as new waves, because
Talking about like Men at Work or
yeah, yeah, of course. We're gonna be now from a network. Yeah.
uh,
Whatever was playing on the radio at that time, I used to listen to it.
how about do you remember Adam and the Ants or Adam Ant?
Like what's one of their
He
songs?
had that song. His videos were very, I guess, in their own way, provocative. But they had remember he had that song called "Strip" and "Goody Two Shoes." Goody Goody Two Shoes, don't drink, don't smoke. What do you do? You don't remember that?
Um, Maybe if I was to listen to the song, maybe.
He's still around doing stuff, but he would have
Mm-hmm.
like these very elaborate, you know, like either pirate or like he would be a highwayman, you know, like in, you know,
Mm-hmm.
he was English,
Oh, okay.
you know, as part of that
Okay.
whole thing. But he really did take a lot from the early '70s British glitter music because he had the two drummers, you know, he had two drummers and it was way out there. So I was really into him. And
Okay.
how about let me think if I can think of someone else.
I
I
was also
bet you
into the Police.
grandma. Oh, you were into the police?
Yes, I was into the Police in high school.
Oh wow.
Yep. Yep. Sting's the man.
Oh
He
yeah.
even after he left to be solo, he made great songs. He was into jazz as well, which I like jazz too. And so I like Sting as well. I wish I can go one of his, to his concerts, because he also makes great soundtracks for movies as well.
Yeah, I
You
didn't
know,
know that. I didn't know he was
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. He makes a lot of these great, love songs for
Uh,
movie soundtracks, and when you listen to them, you know, so I definitely love him as well. When I'm listening, he's got a great voice. Especially I don't know if you ever heard of Englishman in New York.
I'm sorry?
Englishman in New York.
No, I
I'm
haven't
gonna
heard of that.
Yeah, that one is a good song. I remember that in high school when they came out with that one because it sounds jazzy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The only thing I remember from Sting was way back in the 80s. What is it, that song, about, it was like about what was it? It was something like about, it was during the Cold War and it was like a very political type song.
Uh, I
And
think I know which one you're
they
talking
played it on the
about.
radio, but it was like one
Right.
of his first albums after, it was like his message to Russia or something.
To Russia. Right. Right.
Yeah,
I remember.
so I
Yes.
remember something
Mm-hmm.
about that. I did like the Police, some of their stuff, some of
Right.
their early stuff. But I to be quite honest, and I never really admitted this before, but I really was sort of, in that bridge between punk and metal. So like, I really loved the Scorpions. I was really into them. I loved,
So you into the hard stuff, basically.
yeah, oh yeah. I didn't really, I got into Ozzy Osbourne later, but I had a couple friends that were really into Ozzy. But I pretended to be like, it was like, oh, the punk and all this
Right. 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 That
that stuff.
hardcore.
But
Right.
it's sort of interesting now because, now everything is so accessible. And back then, when you had to go and really like, you had to get up and bust your ass to go find a record or something that you really,
Oh yes. Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah. Go to the different vinyl stores throughout the city just to find, you know, even an import.
Yeah, well, that was you in the city. So tell me about being a teenager in New York
Well,
during the
well,
during the 80s, right?
well, growing up also because I was surrounded by music all the time, and I always found comfort in listening to music all the time. I've always had music in my head. You know, for every song that I memorized, when I was young, I would always say, "Oh, I can blend this song with that song." And at the time I was a kid, um, I wasn't able to afford a turntable then until I got older as a teenager. So every time I would go to class, you know, and I hear a song on the radio or if someone's driving by playing music, I would say, "Oh, I can blend that song with this song." And I was always in the classroom just trying to make music in my head and try to put it all together. And then as a teenager, when I was able to get my own set of turntables, I started doing that. Whenever I had this idea, I would try to remember. If not, I write it down. So when I would go home straight from school, I said, "Okay, I'm going to get on the turntables. I'm going to grab that record and this other record and try to blend it," especially with a lot of my mother's music, a lot of the salsa. And I remember no one back in the day when I used to listen to, the Spanish radio stations at the time that were there ever did that. And so I did that with these two classic songs that my mother loved, and I blended it, and my brother was impressed. And he was like, "Oh my God." I said, "Yeah, it just came to me, you know? And I started doing that. And then from there, I said, okay. I was also into hip hop, and I started taking my hip hop records. I used to buy the 12-inch singles and then start scratching like Grandmaster Flash, you know?
Did you like the Sugar Hill Gang?
Yeah, yeah, I love the shit. Yeah, that was like the first rap, well, not the first rap record, but it was one of the second rap records that came out in 1979. These three guys were from Inglewood, New Jersey. It was one of the, you know, rap records at the time because back then record labels and producers thought that it was just a fad, you know. It
No,
wasn't part of a culture.
it was I had never heard that type of music before. And it was actually one of my cousins who, if I remember correctly, played played the no, it wasn't one of my cousins. It was a friend of mine who played the Sugar Hill Gang. And
Right, the Rapper's Delight.
I do remember Grandmaster Flash. I also remember, of course, Blondie's Rapture,
Right.
which became, and it's really interesting about that, I think. so many people don't really know or really understand that Blondie had a very big role in introducing rap to America, you know, in terms of like, I'm talking about like from a very mainstream
Right, right,
thing because, you know, they had that whole thing which she did in the song, the rap, and, you know, she had Five Freddy on the,
right. She actually knew them.
yeah, and
She actually,
he was in the video.
right, right. And
Uh,
yeah, because I remember reading that she's known them since 1977, and I guess in 1981,
well, I
she
think it was
basically
80 that the album came out, Auto American, because they had,
Auto American, right,
yeah,
right,
they had they had the sort of reggae, The Tide Is High, which was like so huge as well, and
mhm.
then they had that song. But I really think that that introduced that genre of rap. You know, some people would laugh at it, but I think that they made
Well,
it mainstream.
well, they did laugh at it because some say from what I was reading that it's sort of making fun of rap and the way she wrote the lyrics, you know.
That I don't.
But
I think it was just all. I think it was. I think people who say that are looking at it too seriously. I think it was just a fun song,
it was a fun song, right?
and
That's what it was.
and if you see the video,
Hmm.
it's clearly depicted that way
Right,
in the video. So I think it just sort of opened up a lot of doors for rappers and for that type of urban music to really sort of eventually come into the mainstream.
right, right. It did because it was like a pop song with a rap version to it as
Yeah.
well. Because from what I read, Blondie was like from the disco era, and it was sort of disco was fading away.
Right,
You
but she
know.
was really the band, which is the band Blondie. They were
Hmm.
they were from the actually the punk. They went to see. They were from the CBGBs and the Ramones days. But it's
Hmm.
funny how they did that. They had Hearts of Glass and Call Me, which were
Right. Hmm.
Giorgio Moroder, very
I remember those songs. Yeah,
yeah,
Hard Glass.
very disco. And then
Hmm.
with in 1980 that album, they did the reggae, and so they were very they were out there. But the funny thing is, they still fall. People still put them in the punk band. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, I don't understand it, but I know from growing up, you know, hip hop was my thing too. After being introduced to some of the old school, R&B stuff, then came the hip hop and the rap, and I noticed when they used to have the block parties, they used to have a lot of these DJs come out and MCs and rap on the phone, on the mic. And that's what also, started it because from what I've read and seen videos, it all started in the Bronx with a DJ named DJ Cool Herc, who used to set up these parties or community parties. And he brought along this friend of his named Coke La Rock, who was like the first one to actually spit a rhyme. It wasn't really much, but I guess he started it. And
Uh,
then from there, others started to follow and wanted to become better. And then that's when they realized if you're going to have a party, you need the DJ and the MC. And
uh,
that's how hip hop became more popular. And then I remember listening to Curtis Blow. I don't know if you remember Curtis Blow.
on that,
Came out, yeah, he came out with a song called "These Are the Breaks" back in the '80s, and I think in the late '80s, I think he came out with something called a song called "Basketball." I don't know if you remember that. And I remember listening to Curtis Blow because he was, all about rapping and rhyming, and it was fun. You know, the hip hop and rap of those days were positive, and it was all about being fun. You know, and I was really into it. I used to listen to LL Cool J as well when he started.
Oh
You
yeah.
know. Uh-huh.
I always remember LL Cool J. I always remember that video going back to Cali. Realize old tall bikini mall.
Yeah, I remember him.
That
I
video,
remember.
I really can't say I was ever like into hip hop or rap or anything like
Mhm,
that, but certain things about it I
mhm.
really did enjoy,
Uh-huh.
and I really liked him a lot. I did like LL Cool J. I thought he had a sense of humor about it too. You know
Right,
what I mean?
right.
Which is cool. I also got to tell you, do you know that Grandmaster Flash did a song with Joan Jett in 1986?
No, I didn't know. What was the name of this?
It was like a thing with Grandmaster Flash and Joan Jett, and they did a song called Black Leather, and they wrote a song for her.
Hmm.
It's sort of funny because they rap and she raps, and it was like
Oh,
this rock and roll thing. It's a great riff, and at the time, of course, critics weren't too kind to it, but I think it's pretty cool. I thought it was like a cool collaboration between rock and roll and that whole rap thing.
yeah, yeah, it is.
Nuance. But also recently, I have to say that they got back together. What's his name? Daryl, somebody from Grandmaster Flash. Is that his name?
For
Uh, one of
from
the guys
Grandma.
from Grand. Well, anyway, he went on stage with her and he did a
Hmm.
whole rap
Okay.
over one of her new songs, and it was
Oh,
sort of
really?
yeah. And
Oh,
all the
okay.
people I found it, you can find it on YouTube, and someone is filming it, and they're like, "Oh my God, Grandmaster Flash is on."
That guy's worth a lot of money. You know that Grandmaster Flash? He's
I'm
worth a
not
lot of money.
surprised. I'm not surprised.
Hmm.
Do you remember White Lines?
Oh yeah, that was the song during that time period when it was interesting. I remember too. It was the summer. I remember in the summer times we used to hang out, and listen to the radio. And when that came out, it just brings back great memories.
It brings back great memories for me too.
Hmm. Okay.
We'll leave it like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know what you mean, Eddie.
But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no, that was a real cool. I remember that. Or do you remember the Gucci Man?
With the Gucci Man?
Yeah, the song, the rap song. I forget who did, not the guy, or I think there's a
Uh-huh.
rapper now that calls himself Gucci Man, but there was a song called Gucci Man that
Okay.
some rapper did. And I remember my sister, because my sister had very eclectic taste,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
She was into Duran Duran, but then
Okay.
Prince, and she was into rappers and stuff. And I couldn't be bothered with any of that crap, So anyway, I remember she had a song called Gucci Man, and it was like, this guy who talked,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I'm probably not describing it that well.
Right.
Check it out. I'll have to find if I can find it. I'll have to send it to you, or maybe we can.
I'll look it up, Gucci Man.
Yeah,
Okay. Is that like somewhat of a rap song, is what you're
there's
saying?
a rap
Or
song. Yeah,
I think I might have come across it, but probably
like
didn't take it seriously.
Rose Gucci. I think it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let me see who else. Run DMC.
Oh yeah, Run DMC.
Also,
Yeah,
right, Run DMC. One of the song. It's
maybe
like that.
the guy from maybe it was the guy from Run DMC and not Grandmaster Flash. Maybe I am mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna see if I can find it right now.
Yeah, because I remember that summer I was out and I hear this song and it was playing. I think it's called Suckers MCs or It's Like That. And I said, okay, I like the beats, I like the groove. And then when they collaborated with Errol Smith um, to cross the barriers between hip hop and rock,
Uh huh.
I was like so excited, because they gave it a different sound.
Oh, this is yeah, it was Joan Jett and Run DMC's Daryl McDaniels.
Daryl McDaniels, okay.
Yeah, and he was
Uh,
on the stage. and he was rapping up. So I'm sorry. See, I don't know anything about the rap world. All I know is from what some of my siblings listen to, and of course, you can remember. Of course, the one song I do remember well is "White Lines." So
Right. Yeah, yeah. I listen to a lot of hip hop up to a certain, point. And then when it started becoming too negative and, too, too violent, too gangster, I said, nah, that's not for me.
yeah.
You
What
know,
about
because I
were you into like what was that? Beat Street, and what was that guy that did the whole those two movies? Breaking.
uh,
Were you into breakdancing?
I used to hang with a crew in my teenage years, and I used to bring the music for them to break dance and whatnot. I used to have that big radio, the Sharp Radio 767, with the four
Mhm.
speakers at the bottom, two cassette players, and that radio was huge and heavy, and it required, I think, like 10 D-side batteries, I think, or 12 to power it. And we used to go to Washington Square Park, and the guys would battle with other breakdancing crews, and I would play all the music that was very popular at the time on the radio, and they would just breakdance. And sometimes, when the other crew used to lose, there used to be fights that used to break out because they were sore losers. It used to be wild at times. And then the police would arrive to try to break up the fight or grab anyone. Everybody would disperse like cockroaches. You know. So, but in those days, you know, if you were into a gang, it wasn't a gang per se. It was more like a breakdancing crew.
Mhm.
And if you wanted to say something, all right, let's battle it out. They lay out the cardboard and they start to break dance. Because before that, there used to be the real gangs that if you had a beef with them, they would definitely beat you up and with a bat or stab you, you know. But that was a different era, because I remember growing up in my neighborhood. There used to be a gang called the Ball Busters, and if you weren't a specific um, ethnic, you would get beat up basically. You
Oh,
know. hmm So
sorry.
when those gangs phased out, then came the breakdancing crews, and that was a way that they would battle if they had beef in those days. You
Wow.
know. hmm
Now, you used to be, you were telling me about getting into beats and all that stuff.
Right.
If you want to tell me a bit about that. I mean, I'm not really clear when they talk about like, you hear these people talk about beats and stuff like that. So maybe you can sort of,
Well, when it came to beats, when you listen to all this music and you memorize it, when you listen to that kick drum, of a specific song or the melody, you can say, okay, I can take this song and blend it with that one somehow. And then from there, I just started buying 12-inch records. I would go to the record stores in Manhattan, like Downtown Records. I would go to Fordham Road. There used to be a record store there and buy my 12-inch vinyls. Whatever was playing on the radio, club, hip hop, rap, all types of genre. And I would just go home and just practice and practice until I can get it, see what I can blend, stack them up, which I think, you know, I can blend the records with. And I would do that like on a Friday night to like maybe, 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock, you know, or even a Saturday. I would just do that instead of hanging out. I would just do that, just play my music, record it, you know. And then as I got older, I started listening to the radio stations like Kiss FM, 98.7 Kiss FM,
oh,
which,
wow.
which and 107.5 WBLS, because they played a lot of, R&B music, a lot of the old school, new school, whatever, you know, and it basically stuck to those stations. And they would play hip hop, and rap, and then once in a while I say, I don't want to listen to that stuff. Then I'll focus on WBLS. And then they had these great DJs also playing on Friday night and Saturday night. I remember they used to have like Shep Pettibone playing on Friday night or Saturday night because he would take a lot of these singles and do remixes of them, which was awesome. I mean, Shep Pettibone was known for that, and he was one of my influences in as a DJ as well. The Latin Rascals also too. They were known for their editing skills on a wheel to wheel. They can take a song and edit it. So if it was like a 3 minute track, they can edit it, make it less than that or even longer, and take bits and pieces of a song, the great parts of it, and edit it. So these guys, they didn't do blends. They would actually do edits and go into the next track through an edit and make it sound flawless. So also Frankie Knuckles, who's the godfather of house, and that's when I was introduced to the early sound of house music, which was basically house music made from disco. You know.
Yeah, I never really understood that. You know what I mean? I like what was
hmm
the difference between like house music? Well, I guess house music was from a house party.
I guess
How
you
did
can say.
that term come about? Do you know anything about that?
Well, it was. I think the term at the time was like more like underground music because this sort of music you don't hear on mainstream radio. You would They wouldn't play it. They wouldn't accept it.
Yeah, but I
You
mean,
know,
the term house music and that became very popular. I think there's even a couple movies called House.
because a lot of these DJs would make would go back home and whatever equipment they had, they would take a song. They would either extend it somehow, take the best parts and extend it, or create it from their homes or from their house, even from their bedrooms. So I think that's where the term maybe came from, house music. And you also had the house parties, so you play. But I think a lot of these DJs, when they were DJing the clubs, and they had all this old disco music or song, they wanted to extend it to like 6 minutes or 8 minutes long. So they would go home, whatever equipment they had, they would do like a remix of it and extend it to make it more like dance music.
Now, I
You
was going
know,
to ask you also too about what did you think of the whole thing in in the '90s? Remember all that music that sort of it wasn't like trying to think of someone here. Hold on one sec. I'm just looking something up.
hmm
Oh yeah, bands, singers like La Bouche, you know, um, with the those really fast dance-driven song where they're repeating something over and over type thing.
La Bouche.
A rhythm is a dancer. What was that?
Oh, Rhythm is a Dancer.
Yeah, Snap.
Snap, right.
Were they
Uh huh.
like well they
Oh,
weren't
yeah.
were they like DJs or were they like uh what was that? Because it seemed like they all had one thing in common. They had very catchy melody with like one phrase that was repeated over and over. And there was generally some DJ rapping, like, like an
hmm
interlude or whatever. And then I remember a lot of being at a lot of parties
And you were here.
in
Rhythm
Hollywood.
is a Dancer.
Yeah, and not that, but I'm
Uh
talking
huh.
about this other thing, La Bouche, and uh, hold on here.
Well, I remember that. Yeah, I remember Snap. I remember Black Box.
Yeah, that I don't know, but I just
hmm
know those songs. Um, and I remember being at parties and stuff. And
Well, it was good. It was considered. house, dance, and electronic.
Yeah, culture beat. That
Hmm.
guy and girl from, I think they were from Germany, and they had that Mr. Vane, a song called Mr. Vane or something. And anyway, it was all, but all those acts were the same, but they seemed to get a lot of traction and a lot of crossover, you know,
Hmm.
because I'd hear them at a lot of parties and stuff, especially in the late 90s.
Yeah, because at that time that was the sound. I,
Yeah.
I also noticed, when it comes to a new,
Was that
like,
like raves too? Do you think that that sort of was like before, like just before raves, where you had that same type of incessant beat and people were really,
um,
raves and everyone was tripping on ecstasy and stuff like that?
right? You can probably say it was, because that's what they did with, that type of music at times.
Yeah.
People would get high, to the music.
But I mean, that became very, how can I put it? Uh, well, the raves, at least, from what I remember, was, you know, that was
Hmm.
that was more known as like a like ecstasy or whatever.
Well, that's what they say about house music too. As those people that listen to house music, all they do is get high and ecstasy and take drugs, and that's not always true. You
Yeah,
know,
but I
because
never
I
been
remember.
to a house party.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't
Because
even
I remember
go to the house
when.
party. I just remember the
Because.
term was like used for everything. It
Mhm.
really became commercialized. I was going to ask you, did you ever listen to like any of the the Stones or the Beatles? Did you ever like any of that type of music?
It really didn't appeal to me. I mean, I've listened to their songs, but it never really appealed to me. To be honest, it
Yeah.
didn't.
How
You
about
know.
what was I was thinking was, so I guess that what'd you think of like the Bee Gees and
The Bee Gees.
yeah, and
Oh, I love the Bee Gees.
yeah, and Don
Yeah.
Summer and
Oh yeah, the Bee Gees. I love the Bee Gees when I listen to their songs and when I saw the movies. But even when I was young and I would hear their songs on the radio, I was like, oh okay. And it was during the time of disco as well.
yeah.
You
Well,
know.
they became, I mean, that defined them. But if you go
Hmm.
back, it's funny, if you go back to the 60s, they sounded very different. They had that very 60s sound and stuff. I mean, a lot of the voice and the singing was the same, that very
Hmm.
high singing.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's just interesting.
Well, I love their, you know, I love the songs that they were writing, but also too, like I don't know if you ever heard of this group called Chicago.
Chicago? Oh, yeah, I heard.
Yeah. They make great love songs too, but in their earlier years, they used to make a lot of great music for dancing.
Oh,
You
wow.
know, hmm even though they were a band, and when I listened to that stuff, I said, "Wow, they're really great."
Yeah.
There's a song that they also play whenever they're making a mix of house music. It's called Street Player. I don't know if you ever heard of Street Player by Chicago. And when
No,
I listened to, yeah, I was like, "Oh, this is catchy, and you can dance to it." And I didn't realize that they made that because I knew Chicago for making great love songs. You know.
well, I mean, that's the interesting thing to me that, I knew songs,
Hmm.
different genres of music and stuff, but like I said, I've always been really pretty much, the rock and roll thing. And of course, there was such great music for the punk scene in Los Angeles. So I really like bands like Chicago. And it's really
Hmm.
funny because I don't know if you remember this, but you couldn't say you liked certain bands if you liked one of, if you were like on some scene or whatever,
Hmm.
and you said, "Oh, I like Journey," then people, you'd be laughed out of the place. And it was funny because Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols was recently talking about that, and he said, "Oh, I was listening to all of them, but at the time I couldn't say I listened to them." And it was very much like that. At least
Right.
in the world I was, it's like,
Hmm.
oh, if you liked metal, then you couldn't like punk. You couldn't say that you liked that. And if you were a
But
pop person, then you were a pop person. In
you
pop,
know, but I tend to disagree with that statement
you
because then that just tells me you're not open minded to different music out there.
know,
You should,
but, that, but I'm just talking about the time. You know what I mean?
you know.
In high school, in high school,
Hmm.
that was really the thing. It was like our little group, we were into what we were into. And
Right, because you have to look at it this way. In high school, a lot of the kids that go there, you know, they just want to be, they think in a certain way. They want to be cool, and if you're not part of that, then you're uncool. Oh, you're listening to that. Oh, you're not really down. You
yeah,
don't know
but
what music is.
time, that's the thing though, even like with us, we weren't, what we were listening to wasn't really considered cool. But we thought it was cool because nobody else knew about it. And
Right,
not
right.
only that, I
Hmm.
think in a way, like for anybody who grew up in the 70s and 80s, you're
Hmm.
really going to have to think about things in a different way because music was really important to your pathway in life. It
Hmm.
really was like your soundtrack. And it wasn't
Right.
like today where you have a bunch of noise in the background. That
Hmm.
to me, anybody like millennials, maybe millennials who, were of age, older millennials who were born in like 1980, right?
Hmm.
They can appreciate what life was like before the internet and all that stuff. But at a certain point, a lot of those millennials, they don't know what life was like without all of this noise and all of this media and this constant barrage being thrown at you. So to me,
Right.
it was like at least there was that opportunity to really be inquisitive and to go out and find out about things and like we're talking about now. You couldn't just sit and click a button and find stuff. It was not just about sitting and doing that. I mean, to me, that I would have thought that was boring. you know
Right.
I mean,
Right.
to me, it was like a whole effort of, oh, I want to look cool, so I want to get my cool clothes, and I'm gonna go down to this record store on Tuesday, and I'm gonna hang out, and I'm gonna talk to cool people about and get turned on to all this great music, and maybe even music that you know, I was too young to experience like early 70s British glitter music like Mark Bolan and T Rex and Gary Glitter. I never knew any of those people, but it was through reading Cream magazine and finding, oh, yeah, oh, Joan Jett mentioned she did Gary Glitter's Do You Want to Touch Me? So I'm going to go and find out about Gary Glitter. Or, oh,
Right.
um, uh, Billy Idol is talking about Mark Bolan, so I'm going to go find out about Mark Bolan. But I wouldn't have known about that. So
Right.
that there really was that whole inquisitive,
Yeah, you can say we were on a mission.
yeah. But I mean, it was different. You know what I mean? It was different than the way music is looked at now, and the way it was much more of a tangible thing. Do you know what I mean by that? Am I expressing myself
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, because nowadays everything is within reach of a click,
Yeah, that's true.
whereas where we had to make the effort to
But
research.
I mean,
you
it's
know
yeah. Even with that though, Henry, I mean, it was like
hmm
clothes. It's like you talk about Michael Jackson.
hmm
And how many people today, Michael Jackson is still everywhere, and there's all this stuff, and he's even still
hmm
had controversies, even though he's been dead for 10 years, right? Over 10 years now.
right.
But the whole point I'm trying to say is that if people don't even realize that today how huge his cultural impact And the people who wanted to dress like him, who wanted to dance like him, and uh, you don't feel like any impact today with anything because everything is sort of just like there. You know what I mean by that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, and there's nothing new or fresh as well because he was the king of pop. Now, who do you have out there?
Well,
You
he was
know,
well, not only that, but he was really talented. I mean,
right?
he was genuinely
Multi-talented.
talented, and he worked for a long time to get to where he
He
was.
was.
For
Hmm.
development, he was able to really hone his craft. And I think that a lot of that stuff, I mean, that was so huge, and so many people were inspired by him. And, you can't count that out. And I think
No, you that you can't.
everything is very bland. People are very bland. It's just like you look at it's like I've been saying for a little while now rock music is still there, but rock and roll is dead because it's not. I mean, you see these people who still play rock and roll, but they're not
Hmm.
rock stars anymore.
Right. Right. Hmm.
They're just
Hmm.
people. They're just like people like me and you because I think it was. I don't know if it was. There's a guy that works in Interscope with what's his name, the rapper. Is it Chuck D?
Chuck D.
I think it might be Chuck D. Anyway,
Hmm.
yeah, I hope I'm getting this right. But anyway, he was talking about how because of social media, people know too much about stars, and there's no mystery, and there's no intrigue, you know, because now it's just there, and they're talking like regular people. So I don't know. I just think that okay, it's great. Someone can listen to Led Zeppelin, but it's not like the vibe that really when rock and roll dominated
Hmm.
the music world, and there was all these magazines, or even just you're talking about pop music, like I remember all the kids, especially the girls, they loved to get Tiger Beats and all these magazines that were directed at teenagers, grade
Hmm.
school kids.
Well,
And you could
he,
sort of be like it. It gave you like it sort of was like we were acting like adults, but as kids.
as kids, right?
That,
Hmm. Well,
that we could there wasn't a lot of things made for kids. Our parents weren't hovering over us, and we were able to go out and there was and explore
and explore and experience, right?
and do
Hmm.
stuff,
To a certain degree, right? Without getting into trouble or harm.
Yeah,
I
I
do
know,
remember
but
that.
it's like
Hmm.
I had to really think about this, and it's like,
Well, we were fortunate.
I consider myself eternally fortunate.
Yeah, I think for our generation, we were fortunate. You
Yeah,
know.
I don't remember my parents being around that much unless something was brought to their attention. I
Hmm.
had the freedom to do what I wanted to do, and
Hmm.
it's only if, like I said not too long ago, yeah, our last when we were talking the other day, that if something was brought to their attention, then it was like, okay, now you've got to sit and talk to me, and you're going to be in trouble. But
Right.
other than that, it wasn't like someone hovering over me, watching my every move, and oh, if this happens, and. So and from that aspect, I feel bad, but I guess one of the things in talking to you, I guess it's just that whole the whole story of what it was like, to be a kid and to be a teenager and to have all these great experiences and how cool everything was. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, yeah.
you ever go to record conventions?
No, I never had the opportunity to do that, to go to a record convention. No.
Uh, that's
You?
something else. I think they still have them. I think they do,
Mm.
but probably not as frequently as they used to have them. I used to go to them and get all my memorabilia, and oh my God. You,
Hmm.
when you found, you know that feeling though, when you found a record that was out of print or something that you'd been looking for, and then,
Right, right,
oh my God, I have got to have this.
right, right. I know there's still some record stores in the city.
Uh,
Um, I know there's one called A1 Records that I went one time, and I would go there to find a lot of old vinyls that I can't find as the digital tracks when I purchase my music from track stores or Beatport. I will go there. Or if not, I can go to a website called discogs.com to find any vinyl that I want there if I don't want to go out to A1 Records or whatever record stores are still available in the city,
yeah.
you know. But it's a great feeling.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about speaking of that. I was just thinking the other day, I heard recently how I think it's vinyl has overtaken CDs and in terms of sales. That's what I read. And I was thinking maybe some artists at some point will withhold their new record from Spotify and digital and release it only on vinyl. Like some really big, someone who's big now. Can you imagine that if they didn't put it on any digital platform and just said I'm going to release it on vinyl? Someone like a Justin Bieber or some
Hmm.
like top 10 person. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Oh yeah, yeah. With vinyl, also it has a different sound as opposed to digital. The vinyl has a warm sound,
Yeah,
especially when it's being recorded.
cool. If just instead of like making it available to like everybody, that people had to actually go out and do something and buy a
Hmm.
vinyl record and maybe even get a turntable.
That's an extra cost for a vinyl. You know that, Ed? They're
Yeah,
like, wait a
I know
minute.
you do have that's
Oh,
sort of like
yeah, I
the
got to spend $300 on a decent turntable so I can play this
yeah.
one
Well, but you
vinyl.
know what though? You just spent but you spend what a grand on an iPhone. It's like
Yeah, you got a point,
they
right?
say to
You got a
me
point.
about oh yeah,
Hmm.
on iTunes, right? And they say, oh, we have to pay us something for a song. And I'd say, you just spent how much on the iPhone? Well, how good is your iPhone or iPod without the music?
Hmm.
And you can't pay $1? That's really lame. Lame in my
Well, I guess it all depends on the individual. If the individual doesn't want to pay as much, they'll probably, or
then
try to
you're
find some way to get it.
allowed to
You
have
know,
any music for your iPod or iPhone. That's what I think should happen.
Man. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Well, I still have my turntables, my Techniques 1200 MK2s. I still have them with me because I think a few years ago, Techniques stopped producing them. So, and if you find them out there, they're very expensive. They're
Yeah.
probably like maybe $1200 for one.
Yeah, well, you have profession. You're doing the professional thing, so I'm talking
Yeah.
about just any Joe, or Jane who wants to get a record player, like a regular record player, not a professional DJ one.
Right. Right. Yeah. The ones I have very professional ones. The
Yeah,
right drives.
but you have
Mhm.
spinning
Yep. Those are the best.
like
You
that.
know.
Well, what about where did you go to high school in New York?
On 80, I think it was on 84th Street between Columbus and Amsterdam.
Oh wow.
Very nice high school. Yeah, very nice high school. I lost you there, Eddie.
Yeah, I
You
know.
there?
I'll have to
Yeah.
that'll have to be an edit,
Yeah. Hmm.
but that's wild.
Yeah, I went to high school there, and I was basically, with a couple of friends and just, into my music mostly, and I would just hang out with my two friends in high school, and we'd just go to the clubs, whatever, because freestyle was popular back then. Lisa and Colt Jam too. I remember one time we were hanging out with all of them. You know, yeah, there were some fun times and whatnot. You know, But I was just like ready for the world. I just wanted to get out of high school and just, move on, see what was next, you know.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
you always turn on, you always go a different path, you know.
Yeah.
you know.
That's true. That is true.
hmm
Uh,
So, hmm
well, tell me, so you're going to get me a playlist, right? We're going to do the playlist, and I have to I'm going to say this that if
hmm
you're listening to this podcast, the playlist for the podcast are either on YouTube or Spotify. So, in case you have just downloaded an episode on any other platform, you will have to go to either of those places to hear the playlist. So, anyway, Henry, tell me some of the things that you're going to put on the playlist.
Okay, it's basically I'm going to give you a lot of the stuff that I grew up listening to throughout the years of the different types of genre.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you a little bit of hip hop, some of the '80s stuff, '60s and '70s. Some of the artists that I've mentioned before. You know, so you get an idea of what I was exposed to, what I listened to here in New York City on the radio stations that play this sort of music.
Oh, that's cool.
Like, okay, for example, I don't know if you ever heard of a rap group called Houdini.
No.
Okay, I'm gonna have one of their songs called Friends. Kraftwerk, you've heard of Kraftwerk, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Trans Europe Express, African Bambata, and Soul Sonic Force, which is
Yeah.
Planet Rock.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shalimar, you remember Shalimar, right? Take That to the Bank.
No, I don't remember that. I remember the name though.
Okay.
Oh, that was a fragrance.
uh-huh.
It shows you how, like, I guess it's all about, you know,
hmm
like you said, broadening the scope
hmm
of what you're listening to.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a really, really long playlist.
Okay,
That's
cool.
so I'm hoping that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay
You
if we
know.
can find it. The tracks on. I'll put them together. Like I said, they'll be put together on YouTube and on Spotify, so people can go on those two on either the Eddie Star channel on YouTube or
hmm
my profile on Spotify. And there'll be, I think this is podcast 15. So you'll be able to check that out. And you're also going to send me a link to a SoundCloud, right?
Right. I'm gonna send you that as
Talking
well.
about
Yeah.
and this was a mix you did.
I have several mixes I've done throughout the years. And the stuff that I love to listen, specialize in, which is a lot of house music. Whether it's soulful house, deep house, funk house, Afro house. That sort of style of music.
So,
You know.
so you have a SoundCloud profile then.
Yeah, my DJ name is DJ SoulQuest at SoundCloud. So it's
Okay, well, what
SoundCloud.com.
we're going to do is we're going to put a link to that in the
hmm
description below. So everybody should go over to SoundCloud and check out Henry's mixes there, and you should follow him on SoundCloud.
Right. My
It doesn't
DJ name
cost
is
you
DJ
anything to
SoulQuest.
hit the button, so go and follow Henry on the SoundCloud, and you'll hear some great music.
Thanks, Eddie. Yeah. hmm it's all right. So it's SoundCloud.com/DJ SoulQuest.
Okay, and we'll put that. We're going to put that in the link in the description. All right, we will put that in the description box below to this podcast. And with that, I'm going to thank Henry for joining me uh, on 15 in the College of Rock and Roll Knowledge. And hopefully, we've expanded people's minds outside and their ears and, you know, talking
hmm
about music from back in the day. And thank you for subscribing. share the love with everybody, and click the bell if you're on YouTube. Follow us on Spotify. We are everywhere. So I'm going to leave it right there.
All right, Eddie.
Thanks, Henry.
You're welcome. Thanks a
We are
lot.
out.
Okay.
Ciao.
Take care. Bye.
The darkness will turn to light. I'm your dirty secret tonight. Dream or not, now take a look inside. Eddie Starr's College of Rock and Roll Knowledge is a production of Ton Up Incorporated. Copyright 2020 Ton Up Incorporated.